Hello, this is Wordwatchers Weekly, the first issue for the week 23rd to 29th April 2024. And this is in the form of audio and video. So, the word that caught my attention this week, the first of them was the phrase bread in the bone. I came across it in the newspaper, in the Hindu last Sunday, and this is a specific reference from it, referring to three women prime ministers, Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, and Bangladesh's Sheikh Hasina, as examples of leadership bred in the bone and pushed up the ladder due to personal tragedies. So they belong to political families, and when their loved ones died or were killed, they were pushed up the ladder. So this bread in the bone rang a bell. You see this bell ringer in the background. And I was reminded of Hamlet's To the Manor Born, which is sometimes altered to the manor born, meaning to the upper class. Whereas Hamlet in the play is speaking about something that is not particularly upper class, about a custom that used to prevail in his country, in his family. So, looking for references about what's bred in the bone, I came across this old proverb: what's bred in the bone will come out in the flesh. And the idea is that anything that is inherited, anything that you had for lifelong as a trait, a characteristic, cannot be concealed. So there are various sayings that, such as the leopard cannot change its spots, you cannot make a silk purse out of a sore's ear, or iron out the curls in a pig's tail, and our own local sayings about dyed in the bone ideologues, about dogs' tails and millipedes on mattresses. So when I wondered about who said this first, said or wrote it first, I found from Oxford Languages reference that the saying was recorded from the late 15th century, and one of the earliest uses contained a negative, as in John Haywood's Dialogue of Proverbs, which was published in 1546. It will not out of the flesh that's bred in the bone. Similarly, almost the same translation, almost the same phrase occurs in a translation of Montaigne's essays that came out in 1603. Of course, the phrase has echoes of the Bible, and Milton, who was a Bible scholar, echoed that too in his Paradise Lost. And as late as 1981, there were quotations that used this phrase. For example, this one in the last ferry: we'll always be farmers, for what is bred in the bone will come out in the flesh. So some of the other things that I noted this week was the story in an advertisement really about an innovator called Beth Koigi in Kenya, whose philosophy is that where there is air, I can bring you water. She has developed a process for turning ambient air into water, and Rolex watches gave her this award, which, according to them, the sum will enable her to install 10 solar-powered air-to-water systems, which would supply around 5,000 liters of water a day to those who need it most in refugee camps and other communities that are off the water grid. So one of the words that were used to describe this innovator was that she is someone who stood for the water stressed, which is a phrase that also caught my attention. In science, I came across something in their regular cartoon in the New Scientist called Twisted Doodles, introducing what the cartoonist called the data fashion show, something of a fad among scientists to present their data in various forms, as a line graph, as a bar chart, as a pie chart, and here this cartoonist calls this the data fashion show. Interesting. I look for examples of political correctness because that is where language appears to be changing most in recent times. And I came across this recent last week article in the online version of the Telegraph by Kate Simpson about the author Teju Cole, who, she says, in February 2014 said that to describe him as a writer was something that he considered offensive. He should be called a text worker. Of course, this should make you think of sex workers. I remember Surya Krishnamurthy once telling me that he hated the phrase. Perhaps he preferred something like love makers and so on. Anyway, Teju Cole, the writer, wants to be called a text worker. Whether this is tongue-in-cheek or not, I leave it to you to decide. So I look for new words, and this is one that I came across when I went through comments in a blog on a Washington Post article, the word nibbling. Looking for the meaning of the word, which I had more or less guessed from the context. The first thing that I came across in the search was that the word you have entered isn't in the dictionary. When I continued the search, I found it in Merriam-Webster's words we are watching. They are words that not yet entered the dictionary, but they think will soon enter or are likely to enter the dictionary. So this, according to Merriam-Webster, is an efficient word for your siblings' kids. Nibbling could be a niece, a nephew, a general neutral term. According to them, it is supposed to have been coined in the early 50s, was relatively obscure for several decades, but has now been revived in recent years. But they have not yet allowed it inside even their online dictionary. So I had to speak about at least one of the words that worried me. This was a cliche and actually an error. Much water has flown like birds down the Nile. This is from an article by a reputed diplomat in a reputed newspaper. I have redacted the source, but uh, I hope such cliches, such errors will not be as frequent as uh, they are. So I did not believe that this error would have been in currency if I hadn't seen it myself. So that brings us to the very end. I have space for your words, which I hope I could make use of next week. Thank you.